Punchbowl News co-founder and NBC News and MSNBC political contributor. He's still a young man, so I don't think time is going quite as fast for you, is it? Is it, Jake? It's mind-boggling.
I don't feel young. I don't feel young, but yeah.
It's the end of June. Did you blink? Did you blink? Or maybe it rained a lot, but it's the end of. So what the point I'm getting to is it's only 30 days in this month. July 4th is next week. Is this going to happen? Is this going to happen?
You know, Mike Johnson doesn't like when people doubt him, and I understand that. He said he was going to get it done by Easter. He wasn't able to get it done by Easter. He got it done by Memorial Day, which is a pretty good deal. But here's where we are. The Senate bill, the parliamentarian, is picking this thing apart and has thrown out a number of key provisions on Medicaid, on a variety of things. Last night they threw out something on gun regulation, effectively, and they still haven't gotten around to some of the other big provisions in the bill. So they have to rework this Medicaid provision called the provider tax, which people were wrestling with before the parliamentarian got involved. So what would have to happen is the Senate would have to move probably tonight, tomorrow. Again, they don't have all the provisions done yet. They don't have everything cleared yet. And there's still things at the parliamentarian. And then they'd have to vote Sunday. They'd have to hold a vote-a-rama, an all-night kind of amendment voting session, and vote on Monday. Then you'd have to assume that the House would pick up this bill and vote almost immediately by Wednesday or Thursday to get this done. And in the House, there are humongous hurdles with what the Senate has done to the bill, relatively minor in comparison, but the far right, the hardline right, is complaining about a whole host of provisions, including the phase out of green energy tax credits, which Steve Scalise said the Senate has to scrap their entire provision and go back to the House's version. So I am skeptical. And I'll just say this, Joe. The July 4th deadline is a figment of our imagination. It's made up. It doesn't need to happen. The debt ceiling, which is in this bill, is not going to need to be lifted until the fall, late summer, early fall. They have all summer to get this done. Now, it doesn't get easier, I'll say that, but it does not need to get done by July 4th.
So in addition to the parliamentarian looking at what's possible and theoretically what's not possible, once you find that out, then you got to see whether the schism in the Senate between people like Susan Collins and people like Ron Johnson or take your pick. I mean, that's a pretty big.
I mean, Rand Paul told us they have four. They got four people on their side, and that they think that they can really, with those four people, say take it or leave it. All of the, I guess we've had three of the four on our air. All of them have said that they're not caving on this. Have you heard any signs of thawing there? And by the way, you didn't mention the SALT tax. We've had a number of House members who have come on and said, forget it, if they don't change back to 40,000 that the House sent to the Senate, that then changed it back to 10.
Yeah. Rand Paul's going to definitely be a no. So we could just assume he's in the no column. Then it comes down to people like you mentioned, Susan Collins, Tom Tillis, Rick Scott, who I assume will be a yes. There are a number of people in the mix who are concerned about a range of options, a range of problems. Number one, on one end, the spending cuts in the bill are either too much or too little. And then there's just a host of problems. And I don't think, listen, I do think the Senate gets this through. But the question is, can they get this through in a state that could also get through the House? I assume SALT will get fixed. I think what they'll do is they'll lower the income threshold, so they will keep it at 40,000, but change the income threshold. I think it's $500,000. They'll go to maybe 250, 500, 250 for individuals, 500 for married couples, which would be a significant change, would save some money. But I think the SALT people would have to swallow that. Save some money
because nobody would use it. If you make $250,000, you don't have a house that's big enough to write off $40,000 in taxes.
And by the way, Becky, I've argued strategically that they should hold out even longer because in January, the SALT cap completely disappears. So go try to explain that to your constituents that you've put a new cap on their, a larger cap, but a new cap on their state and local tax deduction, when in January it would go to unlimited. So I think it's a strategic error, but that's something that they're going to have to deal with. And then again, in the House of Representatives, you have a number of people in a small margin, 2-3 votes, depending on what the attendance is, of people who are just saying that this thing is not gotten better in the Senate. In fact, it's got worse in the Senate. They've changed also, in addition to that, the tax treatment of endowment investment gains for universities, which was a big provision for a lot of hardline conservatives. I mean, Mike Johnson has said for months that the Senate cannot change much in this bill because they have found the equilibrium in the House. The Senate has changed a lot. That's just the blatant fact of it.